right? This is the main thing we're trying to get at here. The reason why we find compositions is so we can find inverses. The reason that we find inverses is so that we can use this property of inverses to solve what we call the big fancy name, transcendental functions. Okay, transcendental functions. We need this property to be true. Okay, and you've done this before. Okay, I guarantee you've done this before. You did this in geometry. In geometry, you would take something like this. Got to go back to my pen. You would take a right triangle and you would say, okay, this angle I'm going to call x. That's a variable. I don't know what that measure is. And let's say that the opposite side is 23 and the hypotenuse is 34. Solve for x. And you would have to go through these steps. You would say to yourself, okay, with respect to this angle, are these two sides opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? They are opposite and hypotenuse. And then you would say, which trig function uses those two sides? And you would have said sine. So this is the sine. And we would write down like this. Sine of x equals 23 over 34. Okay, now we have to solve for the x, but the x is inside a function, and we cannot divide by the letters sin. Doesn't work that way. So what we do is we use this property right here. We take the sine inverse of both sides. Okay, and this sine inverse on the left, the sine inverse of the sine, that's a composition of functions. That's like this. Remember when we go f of g of x? That's what this is right here. But this property is saying that when both the function and its inverse are functions, they pass vertical line test, then the sine inverse and the sine, they cancel each other out. And all that's left is the x. That's how you solve for x. You have to take the inverse of both sides. Now, the sine inverse of 23 over 45, that's on your calculator, right? If you look on the sine button right above it in blue, it says sine inverse. So you can find that. Now, if you want to look at it like an angle, you're going to have to set your mode to degrees. But we don't really care about that. This is a kind of a problem you did in the chapter on right triangle trigonometry and geometry. You really did do this already. But that's the reason you could do this is because of all the stuff we're learning today about compositions and inverses.